Hello guys, welcome on our video. On our video today, we are going to look at developing story about former Citizen TV anchor Jacque Maribe, who has been acquitted in the murder of Nairobi businesswoman Monica Kimani.
We'll read John 8:32, for you shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free. Thank you.
Before we continue, kindly subscribe to our channel, like this video, and turn on notification. Do not forget to write a comment for us and other viewers. Thank you so much. Now guys, let's dive in. Jacque Maribe has been acquitted in the murder of Nairobi businesswoman Monica Kimani. While delivering her judgment on Friday, Lady Justice Grace Nzioka noted that there was no concrete evidence to prove that the former news anchor was involved in the murder which occurred in the September 19, 2018. Jacque Maribe had been charged alongside her former boyfriend, Joshua Irungu alias Joey, who was found guilty of the offense. The evidence of the prosecution against the second accused person did not place her in the house of the deceased on the material night. There was no evidence that she had ever communicated with the deceased. However, in her opinion, Lady Justice Grace Nzioka noted that the prosecution preferred the wrong charge against the former journalist, as detailed by the judge. Lady Justice Grace Nzioka noted the evidence against Maribe revolved around two different statements she made to the police regarding an alleged shooting incident which police claimed was aimed at misleading investigations into Kimani's murder. The Monica Kimani was found murdered at her apartment in Nairobi in September 2018. The businesswoman had just arrived in the country from South Sudan before she was found murdered in her bathtub. Later, after investigations were launched into the matter, police arrested Joey, with police accusing the security personnel of murdering the businesswoman. According to the police, Joey was among the last people to be with the businesswoman in her apartment. 10 days after the murder incident, Maribe was arrested by police, with the former journalist accused of taking part in the murder. During hearing, 35 witnesses testified in the case that has been in court for over 5 years. But who is Jacque Maribe? Jackie Maribe is a famous Kenyan TV girl who has worked at Royal Media Services as a reporter and presenter of political affairs since 2012. Maribe was born on the 18th of December in Kenya and is regarded as of Embu origin. The TV siren went to State House Girls High School, situated in the leafy Nairobi suburbs. Impressive enough is that she was in the same dormitory with the famous gospel singer Size 8 while at the institution. Following high school, Miss Maribe joined the University of Nairobi, where she pursued a degree in journalism studies. After her graduation, Maribe acted in a role in The Constant Gardener back in the year 2005. Maribe later joined K24 TV in 2009 as a senior political reporter, a job position she held until late 2011. From December 2011 till October 2012, the bubbly media personality served as the political affairs correspondent at KISS TV of Radio Africa Group. Ms. Jackie Maribe is the political affairs correspondent for Citizen TV after joining the media firm in 2012. Jackie Maribe's parents, Mr. and Mrs. Maribe Mwangi, reside in Buruburu Estate in Nairobi. Presently, the sexy TV siren resides at Royal Park Estate, situated in Langata within the city, after relocating from her parents' home in Buruburu. The media personality became a mother back on the 14th of May 2014. Jackie Maribe, the son, is called Zahari, and not much is known about who her baby daddy is. How about Jacque Maribe and Dennis Itumbi? Rumor had it that the TV presenter was so romantically involved with Dennis Itumbi, who serves as the Director of Digital Communication in the President's office. The duo has been intimate friends as well as long-term job mates. What caused many to think that the two were lovers was a photo that went viral of the two kissing in public. Furthermore, on the afternoon of the 18th of December 2015, Mr. Itumbi surprised the lady with a happy birthday cake while she was still live on TV reading the lunchtime news. However, as it turned out, Jackie Maribe was engaged to someone else. News confirmed that the two are just friends. Jackie has always kept her dating life very private, which is why Kenyans are so responsive to speculate when she is seen in public with a man. Grapevine alluded that comedian Eric Omondi was her baby daddy. a story they both rejected, saying they were just close friends.
Thank her for that. Speaking for ourselves, particularly for Jackie, we want to say that throughout the period, her conscience has been clear, and the evidence has never at any time suggested that she was implicated. She was not at the scene, she didn't know her, she had no reason to want her dead, and in a way we really blame the prosecution for maintaining and insisting on this case when it had no basis. Having come this far, we want to thank God for this victory. Leave it there as we consult on the way forward. I think that's all I wish to say for now. Probably the father can say one thing. Sorry, did you want to ask something?
Maybe, are you going to pursue
the question of what we will do after this is an issue we will consult on and decide what we will do. For now, we do not want to say anything on what we want to do.
Yes, Hamjabo. On behalf of the Maribe family, I want to express our thanks to the Almighty God. It has been a torturous journey. We have suffered both emotionally, financially, and everything else. But we thank God that He has come to this kind of an end. Like Waki has said, we were never in doubt about the outcome because we assist of the facts of the case. And I would also want to thank our legal team led by Counsel Katwa here. Mr. Juguna Tess is around, Mary, I don't know whether she's here. And they have done a wonderful job. We really pray God that they help them. We also want to help our friends who have kept praying with us all through those years, those who have stood with us. And we also to thank a section of the media, not all of you. Some of you have been quite hostile, but we understand. Others have been very supportive. But we say that God has been assigned, like we say in Gikuyu, Tigagai ari mwena wito. Thank you very much.
Ma'am, just say hi, probably.
I don't know what to say, because when matters come to where God has chosen us that we may be afflicted, there must be a bigger reason. And I want to say this from a point of view. Because many a times you don't understand what is happening and why it's happening. I'm a pastor, and for that reason, I have prayed. I have prayed with others, with my family. Next to me, the council that is called Jugona is part of our church leadership, and I want to believe God that it has not just happened. The Lord has been involved in it, and in particular, I want to thank everyone that has stood with us. Let me say this, that even when the fire appears like it is almost melting our emotions, we have been encouraging ourselves in the Lord, and one more time we want to believe. And I want particularly to address the press. Seek to know the truth. Seek to know the truth. Don't rush to say things that you have not researched about, so that when you report, all of us feel like what has been said is worth reading. I'm saying this because many a times we were in the courtroom and we would see messages of things that have been said. I want to believe that it did not cause us to feel like at the end we would be in a position to get what we needed. We have been supported, and one more time I'm saying this will give us a new beginning, a beginning to trust God even for others that have suffered as we have suffered. May the Lord bless all of us. Thank you for supporting us. Thank you for supporting us.
I don't wish to say anything. I'll just say go read John 8:32. For you shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free. Thank you.
Was there any initial malice? Did you read any initial?
We don't want to say anything more.
John 8:32, like you, John Allen.
Prosecution accusations against Maribe. During the 5-year court case, the prosecution has 6 accusations against the journalist as indicated below. 1. Maribe was in the vicinity of the commission of the murder. 2. The vehicle used in the commission of the offense was hers. 3. Jacque aided and abetted the first accused person, Joey, by providing the car. 4. Maribe switched off her phone at the time of the murder. 5. Jacque gave police false information regarding a shootout involving Joey to mislead police investigations. 6. Maribe was aware of the destruction of evidence which would have been used in the murder case. After hearing the court found that the second accused person's statement made on the gun shooting was false, the judge ruled. Joshua Irungu Joey was found guilty of the murder of Nairobi businesswoman Monica Kimani, which occurred in 2018. While delivering her judgment on Friday, Lady Justice Grace Nzioka noted that the prosecution had proved to the court that the security personnel had committed the offense. The court determined that Joey, the first accused, indeed knew the deceased before her death. Joey had told the court that he had never met or known the deceased. However, based on the testimony of Kimani's brother and cell phone record, the justice determined that Joey had known the deceased before her death. Kimani's brother told the court that they spent a night at the deceased home on August 30th, 2018. The first accused, Joey Irungu, claimed he did not know the deceased at all. George Kimani, the deceased's brother, submitted that Joey and Monica Kimani were in the same class in 2002, taking the same course in hotel and beverage management, the judge stated. Regarding who was last seen with the deceased, the court agreed with the prosecution's evidence that the security personnel was the last person to be with the businesswoman before her death. When the doctrine of last seen is applied, the law presumes that the person last seen with the deceased was responsible for their death, and the accused is supposed to present an explanation of what happened, she stated. Similarly, Justice Nzioka agreed with the prosecution's aspersions that Joey used a gun to intimidate the deceased before her death. On the other hand, forensic evidence established that the bloodstains on Joey's shorts belonged to the businesswoman. What was the cause of Monica Kimani's death? There was an irregular inversive wound on the neck caused by a sharp object. There were also bruises on the wrists of both legs. According to the court, the person who murdered the businesswoman had military-like training and intended instant death. What do we know about Joey? He was born and raised in Nakuru and is the second born in a family of 4, 2 boys and 2 girls. Joey is also said to have schooled at the Kenya Polytechnic, currently known as Technical University of Kenya, before he left for Dubai. Joey first came to the limelight in June 2018 when he proposed to his now ex-girlfriend, Jacque Maribe, who at the time was a news anchor at Citizen TV. At the time, the photos and videos he shared on his Instagram page depicted someone who worked in the security sector in the United Arab Emirates, and after the engagement with Maribe, he always teased plans to open a high-end security firm in Kenya. Some of his friends knew him as someone who offered private security services to VIPs. All went well until he was identified as the main suspect in the murder of Monica Kimani, who was a businesswoman based in South Sudan. He was detained at Comiti prisons and later Manyani prisons in Voi for 18 months before he was granted bail. He has been out on bail until Friday when he was found guilty. After he was released on bail, Joey moved to Nakuru, where he lived with his parents briefly before he moved in with his new girlfriend, who was called Eleanor Ella Musangi. Ella was also a model. During this time, Joey got saved and became a gospel musician and went on to release 3 songs before he took a break.
I have chosen to take the path of looking at the evidence that relates to the first accused first in relation to that issue, and then go to the evidence relating to the second accused person of identification parade. There is the issue of the clothes which the accused person was wearing. There is the issue of a stolen ID card. There is the issue of destruction of evidence. There is the issue of the gun. And so I will try and flow the issues in what I believe is a chronological manner, again for ease of understanding. Now, If I may fast track us, I have, in answering this question, which is a very critical question and very critical part of the judgment, summarized the prosecution's submissions, summarized the victim's family submission, and summarized the first accused submissions. And Professor Nanda treated me to good substance, not good in the sense that none of the other people's substance, but in terms of volume. So a bit of this judgment, which I think runs into about 30 pages or 35 pages, is really a summary of what the parties submitted, okay? But I would like to read it out in brief for us to know. And so, the prosecution, of course, advanced their case that the first accused person killed the deceased. And they did that by inviting this court to look at the conduct of the first accused person before, during, and after the murder. And inviting this court to do that, the court was invited to note the following, that one, before the murder, it is the prosecution case that the first accused person stole the ID card of Dominic Becerra Harun and went to use it to access the residence and the premises where the deceased was staying. That is the submission of the prosecution. It is the submission of the prosecution that the first accused person had extra cloth changed into those clothes, went to the deceased house, committed the murder, changed out of those clothes, and that's it. It is the prosecution case that the first accused person armed himself with a gun to the deceased house to use it to subdue, to intimidate, to coerce her to submit before the murder or in the course of the murder. It is the submission of the prosecution case that after the accused person, that is the first accused person, had committed the offense, he went and destroyed the cloth, which would have been used as evidence in this case. It is the prosecution case. He then shot himself to divert the attention of the investigators from investigating the murder charge to investigating a shooting incident. The family of the deceased concurs and associates themselves with the prosecution case and invites this court to note that the evidence by the first accused person that he did not know the deceased is insincere. And they draw the court's attention to the fact that there is call data that speaks to the contrary. And the family of the victim submitted to this court that it should take cognizance of the fact that motive is irrelevant for purposes of proof of the offense of murder. What did the first accused submit on? The first accused persons have submitted that the description given by the prosecution witnesses on the clothes that the first accused was wearing is generic in the sense that those clothes did not have any marks that would identify them specifically out of any other clothes of the same kind. The first accused person has submitted that there was a lot of contradictions in the prosecution witnesses' testimonies. I have analyzed what they are inviting this court to consider as contradictions, and they are as follows. One, that there are contradictions on the time when Haron entered the deceased house and left. And that saying those contradictions arise from the record held by the protected witness number 3, the guard at the gate, that shows that Haron entered the deceased house at 23:21 and left at 23:31. And therefore that suspected killer was in the deceased house for only 10 minutes. And they are submitting, is it possible to commit a murder in 10 minutes of this kind? They have submitted that the person whom the court is being invited to deem as the first accused person and who has been identified as Haron is not the first accused person. That the prosecution have failed to show the nexus between Haron and the first accused person. They have invited this court to look at the contradictions as they relate to the evidence of the witness number 8, Janice, that the first accused person had a bag in which he carried a white counsel when all other witnesses did not speak to a bag. They have invited this court to consider that the accused person has said he didn't know the deceased, and therefore there is no way he would have even known that he was coming from South Sudan. They have told this court to consider that when you look at the ID card of Becerra and you look at the accused person, there is no relationship. They have invited this court to take cognizance. May I request that you probably stop there for now? Thank you very much. I realize that I need the attention of the council, but they need water, so I hope you have water. This court has been invited by the first accused person in his submissions to take note of the fact that there is a message that was sent to PW16 Kaka from the phone of the deceased person saying, "Kuja unisaidie kulala." And that if that message got to the deceased Sudanese boyfriend, he would have gotten infuriated, he would have gotten annoyed, and probably would commit the murder. This court has been invited to consider that the forensic evidence showed that other than whatever evidence the prosecution have brought, there were 2 other unknown male whose DNA was found on the strappings that were used to tie the deceased. And so the argument by the first accused person is that it is these 2 other male persons, they are known, that must have committed the crime. This court, I said the first defendants treated me to quite lengthy submissions, and I took all of them into consideration. This court has been invited to note that the allegations by Brian Kasaine Spira that he was called by the first accused person at 2 a.m., asked for paraffin to go and burn some items, is not true. This court has been invited by the first accused person to find that the shot that the prosecution produced in this court, having blood stains of the deceased and which has been attributed and said to belong to the first accused person, is not the shot which the police collected from the first accused house. That if the prosecution needed to prove beyond reasonable doubt that shot is the same shot they collected, they should have brought a photograph thereof. This court has been invited by the first accused person to make a finding that the identification process was flawed. This court has been invited by the first accused person to find that there was an intention by the investigators to fix the first accused person, and that is evidenced by capture of a wrong vehicle somewhere in Karioko to tie the evidence of a witness who said that the first accused person told him he stays in Italy. This court has been invited by the first accused person to make a finding that the evidence by Jennings PW8 that he'd robbed the second accused person's vehicle is a lie, and that he had his own vehicle and at no time did he drive the second accused person's vehicle that was with the first accused. The court has been invited to make a finding that there was no blood stain at all on the shot that the deceased had, and which was, the first accused had, and which was collected from his house. The court has been invited to consider that the investigating officer did not investigate satisfactorily or adequately whether the deceased Sudanese boyfriend was in Kenya and could be a suspect. The court has been invited to note that other persons who were in the deceased house on the material night were never subjected to an identification parade. And so, in a nutshell, the court is being invited to make a finding that the prosecution have not discharged their burden of proving the case against the first accused person beyond reasonable doubt, and he should be given the benefit thereof. That this court do dismiss the case against him for lack of merit. So, having considered the evidence that I've spoken to and the submissions, I've raised the following issues for determination. 1, whether the first accused person knew the deceased prior to her death. Secondly, whether the first accused person stole and used the stolen identity card to access the Muria Gardens where the deceased was staying. Thirdly, whether the clothes that the first accused person was wearing on 19th of September 2018 implicates him in the commission of the offense. Fourth, whether the accused person was in the deceased house on 19th of September 2018, and whether he was the last person to be seen with the deceased. The fifth item, question. Whether the first accused person had a gun on the particular night and used it to subdue the deceased. The next issue I'll be looking at is whether the first accused person was positively identified on the identification parade. And lastly, but of course not the least but very important, a recap of whether then the prosecution have given this court adequate evidence to make a finding that the first accused murdered the deceased. So let's take the first issue. And the question is, did the first accused person know the deceased prior to her death? And this question has arisen because the evidence of the first accused person is, I did not know the deceased at all prior to her death. So let's analyze the evidence together. I have considered the prosecution evidence and the evidence of PW10, Jacque Kimani, the brother of the deceased, is that he is known to the accused person because they were together at Kenya Polytechnic. As far back as, I think, 2002, they were in the same class, taking the same course in hotel and beverage management. It is the evidence of that witness, please mark the date, on 31st of August 2018, he was with the first accused person in the house of the deceased. The death hearing was on allegedly unknown time, said to be 19th of September. But I am saying, and I said, please mark the date. This witness, the brother of the deceased, says, prior to the death of my sister, on 31st of August 2018, I, my girlfriend, the first accused, and the deceased were in the deceased's house. Ramuria Gardens, same apartment. And that the sister, the deceased, mentioned to him that she was communicating with the first accused on Instagram. That on the material night, the first accused person and him slept on the sofa set, otherwise known as the couch, whereas the deceased and the brother's girlfriend slept, and I'm not saying this for no reason, everything I say has a reason, slept on the deceased bed.
We have come to an end of this video. We remind you to please subscribe to our channel. Kindly like this video. Do not forget to write a comment for us. Thank you so much for watching our video up to the end. Goodbye, let's meet in our next video.